Welcome back, Wolfpack. Verlis here, and this is a follow-up video with what happened with the expert belt. So I knew the video was going to get backlash. Like, of course it's going to get backlash. I'm taking something established, I'm trying to go against it, and I thought I put it together a really good argument. Interestingly enough, I consider the video a hilarious success in that the things I put together well, the specific points I went to make in the video were the points that I was expecting to not get any comments against, and they were the points that didn't get any comments against. That mostly the things that were really obvious or the obscure points that I didn't think needed extreme levels of mentioning were the ones that did get the most backlash, and so I'm going to address those in this video. And also, the biggest point that I honestly do not understand how people got offended by this, that I never called anyone a noob. I never said in the video that you are a noob for using this item, or I never had any derogatory intent in using the term noob trap, and I think I only used the term noob trap once, maybe twice in that entire video, and I don't consider the term noob trap even like that bad of a thing. Like, it's a term. I'm not going out and explicitly calling anyone a noob. I'm going into what the foundation of a noob trap is for that, and that's pretty much an item that looks appealing to newcomers, and that's really like a noob. That's essentially what noob is. It's a newcomer, someone that's new to the game, someone without a base understanding. Now, that might sound insulting, but only if you use it in an insulting way. It has to be used in a slurful way to become an insult, I feel, which is why I didn't think I was insulting anyone. I had no intent to insult anyone when I was saying it the way I did, because I find the term noob trap as a term of growth and understanding. That once you look past what its appeal is and actually find its application, once you understand that, you know, you've grown as a battler, you've grown as a player. I feel that the expert belt is probably the most noob trappy item in the game. It's something that has appeal to it. It's something that looks good on paper. It seems like something that is very strong overall. And it's not obviously useless, but it's not at the same time obviously overpowered and incredibly useful. So some people might be attracted to it. And that's really what I feel that it makes it a noob trap, because the people that are attracted to it, they might fall into a mindset that locks them into using a less useful item than their potential is using because other people are using it. And I think that that's a problem, because the way that I was trying to avoid the Greninja argument. I didn't want to seem one-dimensional and just using like Greninja as the main reason why I don't think Expert Belt is good. Because I feel that, you know, with Greninja, Life Orb is almost always a better option, because you're a frail Pokemon. You don't take very many hits. Even a lot of neutral hits have a good chance of KOing you. So if Life Orb doesn't score a KO, then Expert Belt wouldn't have scored a KO, which means you're going to take an incredible hit back, which risks you being KO'd as well. That the chances of an Expert Belt being different than a Life Orb in that the recoil isn't enough, but it's still enough to score a 1-hit or 2-hit KO while saving your life, those opportunities aren't enough to outweigh that, you know, Life Orb hits neutral hits harder. That you're going to get a lot more chip damage in. That in the end of the day, even if you score KO on your opponent and the Life Orb damage ends up finishing off, that you still got a pretty good one-for-one trade with the consistency and the just assurance that is Life Orb, bringing more damage to every aspect of the fight. Also, Focus Sash. Focus Sash is a very good option because it turns a 2-hit KO into a guaranteed 2-hit KO. That you don't have to worry about the Life Orb recoil, and that you don't have to worry about Expert Belt having enough damage, or not having enough damage, and then you go boom boom KO, and then you can follow that up with some extra damage because the Life Orb because the Focus Sash saved you right there. So I feel that in most situations that both of those items outweigh Expert Belt in that they give you a 1-for-1 or 1-for-1 plus that Expert Belt can't guarantee. That they have more situations where they are valid, and I didn't want to have to say that because, like I said, Greninja's the obvious Expert Belt user. I didn't want to look like I only looked into Greninja to call Expert Belt bad. So a lot of the other things I said in the video were where it went really well, and those are the arguments I'm not getting. Another argument that really confused me, though, is that people say they use Expert Belt to bluff a choice item. Now, this doesn't make any sense to me because choice items boast a lot of stats. That if you're using an Expert Belt to kind of fake out a choice specs or a choice band, your opponent should be able to tell that you're doing a severe lack of damage at some point. That they're going, well, that hit didn't do anything. If it was choiced, it should have done a lot more. And at the same time, people have also made the argument, like, that's another thing about YouTube. The comment section always contradicts each other. People say that it's only good for faking Choice Scarf because Choice Specs and Choice Band, you can't fake those. Other people say it's only good for faking Choice Band and Choice Specs because with Choice Scarf, you'll notice the speed difference. So we have a lot of people contradicting each other on how it can be a fake, when really you're having to risk a lot of stats. That if you're trying to fake a choice scarf, well, you should have outsped your opponent to not do as much damage. And if you're trying to fake a choice band or choice specs, then you're just doing more damage anyway, so your opponent should be able to catch on to that. And even if you're using it to fake, that means you're using the item for its poorest qualities to your advantage. That means you might as well not have an item if you're trying to fake out your opponent by just locking yourself into one move that's not doing enough damage to KO, that's not being a reliable enough like source, and you're using the negative aspect of Expert Belt, which is that it's useless unless you're hitting a super effective move. So that means it's like using Lumberry to bluff a choice item that until they status you, they don't know you have a Lumberry, so they just assume you're choiced when you're not boasting any other bonus stats from it, which is why I find it a very awkward conversation, or like an awkward like argument supporting Expert Belt, is that you have to make Expert Belt useless in order to fake it as a choice item. I'm not sure about that one. So on top of that, I was also going through a lot of usage, because one of the reasons why I feel that Expert Belt is a poor item choice is that its usage is incredibly low. On almost every Pokemon it's used on, it has less than 2% usage, which means that I feel that there's a couple of hardcore people that want to force it into working, that want to make it work as a strong item. But I feel that that's what the trap is about it. That those couple people that are holding on to it, they're passing up the better option in most cases to try to make it work as an Expert Belt. Use that mindset of, well, at least I'm winning with the Expert Belt. I took the disadvantage point and turned it around. Now, that's its own mentality, but from a competitive standpoint, that's not the ideal thing to do. That's like using a full baton pass team to turn Magikarp into a sweeper. Sure, it's fun, sure, it's exciting, but the reward from it isn't as big. That if you use Magikarp to sweep, it's a visible reward. That people are going, wow, I just got swept by a Magikarp, or yeah, I used the Magikarp sweep, instead of this item that is invisible. You can't tell if your opponent has an Expert Belt if they're from just going, like if they use an Expert Belt against you, you can't naturally tell. It doesn't say Expert Belt did bonus damage. So I mean, for all you know, they just had an item that wasn't useful. You know, maybe even a Salak, Patea Berry, something that isn't always visible. So I mean, you're not giving yourself the benefit by going, wow, that's an exciting thing that I swept with an Expert Belt, because your opponent wasn't aware that you were using an Expert Belt in almost every situation where Expert Belt is used. That's why I was wondering why people would use it for gratification. But at the same time, it still has such a low usage, so that means a couple people are holding on to it for some reason. And almost very rarely is it I would almost say almost never is it the option that is consistently best. That Life Orb is consistently outputting damage, and that for the several speed ties for a specific Pokemon that Expert Belt might have extra damage on that will save you, it just doesn't pay off in any way to put that risk out there and make yourself weaker in 99%, well maybe even 95% of scenarios, to just be stronger in that 5% and then boast that 5% as Expert Belt. I think that's where that trap mindset comes in. Now there are a couple Pokemon that are a little more popular. I believe Infernape has 7% Expert Belt usage, Greninja has 15%, but I'm already kind of disproving Greninja, and the biggest one was Electivire. Now I feel that Scarf Electivire, you know, it has its own potential, that it's a super strong and speedy Pokemon. But at the same time, you also, you know, you can just straight up use Life Orb on Electivire, and depending on how it's being run, you know, it's generally going to be a 2-hit, 3-hit KO Pokemon, and Life Orb might make a couple of 3-hit, 2-hits, or 2-hits, 1-hits, but at the same time, you're trading that for more consistent damage overall. And I feel that the Expert Belt doesn't, its drawbacks are far greater than Life Orbs. That Life Orbs is only a 10% health drawback on the Pokemon you're using. Expert Belt is, I'm not an item and I'm doing less than a Life Orb when I am being an item. So that's why I feel like it's just not that great of an item overall. Especially when you just start comparing the usage, that maybe if every Pokemon that used Expert Belt had 5 to 10% usage, I could see the potential in how people are making it work. But still, since it's only a low usage of 1 to 2 to maybe even 3% on certain Pokemon, it just shows that I think a couple people are sticking with it. They're promoting it as a good item, which is what's trapping the other players into thinking that it is a better item than it really is when you compare it to every other outlet. That for sweepers, you know, they have other things. I neglected to mention even Rocky Helmet and Assault Vest on the last video about as other tankier options, that if you want to put Expert Belt on a tank instead of a Life Orb, Rocky Helmet, Lumberry, Citrus Berry, the Rocky Helmet, Leftovers, these items are better items overall, I feel, because they can give you that extra endurance, that instead of becoming a 2-hit KO, you can prolong yourself into a 3-hit KO, thus buying yourself an extra turn, which is effectively 100% more damage, instead of just 20% more damage on only super effective hits. So, by just looking at, you know, the most popular Pokemon that get use out of it that could just have a better item option like Greninja, Electivire might be the extremely rare case, but again, it's that rare case that, you know, unless you're incredibly catering to Expert Belt, it's not a good slap-on item. And even if you are catering to Expert Belt, you're losing a lot of potential that you could be putting into a different Pokemon or putting into that Pokemon and not trapping yourself into the Expert Belt idea that you're going to make it work. That there's a lot more options that just give you more benefit consistently. That's why I don't like Expert Belt as an item. I feel that people following it kind of trap themselves into thinking it's a better item than it really is. And that's really what it is, that I feel that, you know, in most cases, it comes off as a better item than it actually proves to be. So, that was the main thing. I didn't call anyone a noob. I had no intent of insulting anyone. I was actually more surprised that that's one of the big things, that a lot of the fake out aspects of Expert Belt don't make any sense. That when you look at it, like, you have to... I'm still trying to understand that one, because I really don't. And then with the low usage and stuff, it just seems like a poor item that you could have a better usage over, and that it's just a lot more smoke and mirror than it really is in almost every aspect. So I hope you guys enjoyed the video, and that's what extra things I think about Expert Belt.